I call the member Miki Whaitari.
Kia ora, Mr Speaker. E te kai whakahaere o te whare nei tēnā koea. I ngā mema o te whare, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Mr Speaker, I rise to firstly congratulate and to acknowledge you as our Deputy Speaker of the House. I also want to acknowledge the returning of our Speaker, the Honourable David Carter, and of course one of our colleagues, the Honourable Trevor Mallard, along with member Lindsay Tish, in retaining the seats as the Speaker. And Mr Speaker, let us hope that what I've seen in terms of both your chairmanship and the other speakers in terms of your partiality remain for this term, and I look forward to working with all four of you gentlemen. Mr Speaker, I wish to congratulate the National Party for receiving the mandate to govern from the people of Aotearoa, New Zealand. And I respect that you have a job and you have set a pathway forward for these next 3 years. There'll be times that I will disagree with you, no doubt. But as a member of opposition, it is our role to hold you accountable for the decisions that you make in the interest of the people of New Zealand. And I intend to do that to my utmost in my time in this House. Mr Speaker, I'd like to also acknowledge all returning members to the House, to congratulate you all in coming back to represent your constituents and to be the advocate that they've entrusted in you. I also want to welcome all the new members. Can I say, Mr Speaker, the quality of maiden speeches given not only by my colleagues on this side of the House, but across the House was most impressive. And if we can maintain the commitment and put political aside, then I believe competency and common sense will prevail in this 51st Parliament. Mr Speaker, I am honoured to be returned to the New Zealand House of Representatives as the member for Ikaro Rāwhiti. With an almost threefold increased margin, but particularly for the increase in voter turnout that we achieved by 9% since the 2011 election. And Mr Speaker, not an easy feat given that's my very first general election, and also in acknowledging the former member, a mentor and a friend of this House, the Honourable Parekura Horomia, I think it was a great achievement. But Mr Speaker, my return was only possible through the commitment and dedicated efforts of not one campaign team, not two campaign teams, but 3 campaign teams, Mr Speaker. Tai Rāwhiti, Gisborne, Te Mataua Maui, Hawke's Bay and Te Awa Kairangi, the Hutt Valley. I want to especially acknowledge and thank Lorraine, Joanne, Robin, Nevada, Danielle and Naomi. And I especially want to thank and acknowledge all our supporters and the many, many volunteers who door-knocked, telephone canvassed, delivered pamphlets and attended the many candidate debates we had throughout the electorate. Why am I making a big deal about this, Mr Speaker? Because like my colleagues that hold Māori seat, my electorate is one of the largest, covering 657 kilometres in distance and about a 9-hour drive from top to bottom. So it is hopefully understood by members of this House that it was no mean feat to bring home that victory. And so I guess I'm standing here a bit of two cities. One, how successful our campaign was, but also how disappointing the party effort was. But you know, we're approaching that and we're dealing with that, Mr Speaker, through our own review. Mr Speaker, with the exception of Waiariki, Māori voters have put their faith back in Labour, and I am pleased to join Calvin Davis, member for Te Tai Tokerau, Pēni Henari, member for Tamaki Makaurau, the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta, member for Hauraki Waikato, Adrian Rudafia, member for Te Tai Hauuru, and Reno Tere Katani, member for Te Tai Tonga, and of course our colleague Luisa War, member for Manurewa. Mr Speaker, whakapapa, genealogy, is an important principle in Te Ao Māori. Often your destiny is preordained by one's whakapapa. Henare, Mahuta, Ratana, Terakatani are legacy names throughout Te Ao Māori, particularly in recognition of the unrelenting sacrifice and service of the rangatira to advance our Māori people. But Mr Speaker, I have no doubt that all Māori members across this House will set their own pathway, just as their tipuna did, and I wish them all the very best in those endeavours. Mr Speaker, we are accountable to our electorate. We are accountable to our whakapapa. Let us not forget that. Mr Speaker, in the time remaining, I do want to talk about the issues that I confronted during the campaign throughout Ikaroa Rāwhiti, and clearly the smallest letter in the English language is the biggest issue facing the people of Ikaroa Rāwhiti, and that is jobs. Jobs in the East Coast, jobs in Gisborne, jobs in Wairoa, jobs in Hastings, jobs in Wairarapa, and jobs in the Hutt Valley. And I've heard the speech from the throne, and I've heard the delivery of an economic contribution under this national government. But Mr Speaker, can I go on record to say there are no jobs throughout Ikaroa Rāwhiti? These are the concerns that our people are sharing with me as I travel throughout the electorate. No jobs, poor housing, and as we all know, one of the biggest drivers for poverty in the home is the lack of suitable and sustainable jobs. So, Mr Speaker, I not only going to hold the government to account, but like you see, I have no sleeves because I'm a person that rolls up my sleeve and I muck in. And I'm coming to this House to share a plan of how we grow jobs throughout Ikaroa Rāwhiti. And I applaud the plan that's laid out, but I think that the national government need to think a bit more innovative around how you grow jobs in the East Coast. And I have a plan, and I'm happy to share that with them. Mr Speaker, there are a situation in Hastings recently around housing, and I want to go on record to acknowledge some people that are fighting for our homeless people in the Hawke's Bay. And I want to mention here Kitty Swindell, who has a soup kitchen every Friday at 6 p.m. in the Clive Square at Napier. She has on average 15 to 20 homeless gentlemen that she feeds every Friday night. And this has been going on for years. So there is not only a shortage of homes throughout Ikaroa Rāwhiti, but we have a shortage of emergency homes. And people like Kitty and her family, off their own bat, are helping the people in the Napier area. I want to also acknowledge Lou Hutchinson. I want to go on record and acknowledge Florence Karaitiana. These are people in Hawke's Bay that are protesting and raising the issue of the lack of housing in the Hawke's Bay area, despite, as my colleagues on this side have shared, many boarded up state homes, but people struggling to get decent homes in the Hawke's Bay area. So again, I want to add my weight that there is a housing issue in Ikaroa Rāwhiti, and we need to hold the account of this government to make sure that they are addressing them. There are two policy issues, Mr Speaker, I want to finish off about that was raised in the speech from the throne. One is a continued investment in whānau order. I understand up until December 2013, over $113 million have been spent on whānau order initiatives. And the Honourable Williamson spoke about Morris talked about outcomes, that we should focus on outcomes. So I look forward to seeing what has been achieved through such a large investment in whānau order, particularly when we get a poverty report out today that says nothing has changed in 6 years. Mr Speaker, finally I want to touch on He Kai Aku Ringa, which is the government's economic plan strategy for Māori investment. And can I say that what I've seen to date in my short time in this House is, apart from 6 trips to China, last year we announced the $2 million, this government announced the $2 million Innovation Fund to grow Māori exports, which I think is woefully undercooked. But interestingly enough, Mr Speaker, we've got a $1 million cultural stage show invested, and I just hope that that this isn't politically tinged with who is going to provide that cultural show and how cultural shows are going to grow economic opportunities for Māori exporters. Mr Speaker, I I again say it's a privilege to be in the House, and I look forward to the next 3 years. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.
Mr Speaker.
I call the Honourable Joe Goodhue.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'd like to begin by congratulating you, Mr